Yeah, so in my presentation, I would like to focus especially on the project that I made in response to the Demounting Louis Agassiz campaign, which was founded by the Swiss historian an activist called Hans Fassler. He wrote this book in 2005 about Swiss involvement in slavery and the slave trade. And when my sister gifted me this book, at the time I was not aware about this history. I was always interested in finding out more about it, but this book was at the time the third book about this topic as a whole. Haiti plays a role as well. My mother is from Haiti, and it was just in the time when I was producing a first series of artworks made with the staple gun that Maria mentioned before. There's a way of how I started my artist practice during my master's studies, that I had the idea to work with this tool, and after testing it for the first time, I realized that it's really like a weapon. The weight, the sound, you have to protect ears and eyes, and somehow I realized that I can use this tool as a way to discuss issues I'm concerned about. And Haiti was at the time what I was connected to because of my heritage, but also because I wanted to visit our family. My mother and her family, they moved to New York in the 60s, but I have family members that did stay there. And due to the political situation, it was family, especially my mother was always worried that I go to Haiti because I could be kidnapped, as it happened to two family members of ours. So her worry was really justified. But still, I really had the urge to go back, and it happened then eventually in 2011 and 16. But still, at the time in 2004, during the studies, I decided to portray people that were responsible of the troubles in Haiti. So I made a portraiture series called Shooting Back: Reflection on Haitian Roots, and I shot with this tool Christopher Columbus as a starting point when the problem started there, and then I continued with the dictators' portraits of Jean-Claude Duvalier and François Duvalier. And now that since I talked about this, maybe I should anyways show it. I thought I might not talk about it, but it's somehow good to give it a context. So this is the tool you see in my hands there, and this is the work that I created. And for me, it felt like a possibility to shoot back at a history that did so much harm. But soon after, I realized that I'm creating images of powerful people from history that did a lot of harm. And of course, the title Shooting Back shows what's the connection to why I do these portraits. But then on the other hand, I create images of people that were written down in history a lot, and later on, and that comes to the surface in the project, presenting how the methodology of shooting back became how yeah. I cannot mute because otherwise you don't hear me anymore. The methodology of shooting back became more of a stitching of the colonial wound. So I was able to transform the shooting of these staples. But then I jump forward. So I read this book. I wanted to show him this series and discuss about this history, Switzerland not being a colony, but how Switzerland still was involved in the colonial project very much through colonists doing business in the Caribbean, through different plantation owning and so on. So that happened. I met him 2006, and from then on he would introduce me to projects he is doing. In 2007, he founded the Demounting Louis Agassiz campaign, and it was because Louis Agassiz's 200-year birthday was celebrated. He was a very known and celebrated glaciologist, and by resulting in having over 80 places around the world named after him. He was a naturalist, also studying fossils and fish especially. And most places that are named after him are in Switzerland, but then also a lot in the States and Canada. Up in the Arctic, there is the Agassiz ice cap, which is 40,000 square kilometers. 21,000 square kilometers big. And in Switzerland, there is this Agassizhorn that Agassiz named after himself at the time when he was not very known. What happened in 1846, he immigrated to the States. He was invited to go to Harvard and lead a lecture series. And through that time, and then eventually actually staying in the States, immigrating there, he developed in becoming one of the most influential racists of the 19th century when he started to see Black people. He was very disgusted about Black people and how they are also mixing with the population, the white population that said the colonial Europe basically over there. And he became known for his theories, polygamist theories, claiming humans are from different origins, that there is a hierarchy of having blacks at the bottom and whites at the top, and really in a governmental level, suggesting also segregation, moving, claiming enslaved people to the south, and so on. And this history was not communicated in 2007 when his 200-year birthday was celebrated through different exhibitions. So everybody was always talking about the merits relating to glaciology. And so this campaign was to suggest that one of the mountains, this particular Agassizhorn mountain, would be renamed after an enslaved man called Renty, who was still born in Congo, who was then kidnapped to be enslaved on a South Carolina plantation. And then he invited me to be part of the committee. And that was the moment when I felt I want to do more than just claiming, give my name to support this idea of this renaming. And the first thing I did is I shot back at Louis Agassiz. So it was still in the line of the first 3 portraits I created in this way, claiming. And in 1850, Agassiz commissioned photographs to be made of Renty and 6 further enslaved persons on this South Carolina plantation. And with those photographs, he tried to prove the inferiority of Black people. And that was when photography was just invented. So these were still daguerreotypes, so photographs on metal, very in a small scale. And it is said that this series is the first ever photographic series made of enslaved people without clothes. And Renty was the eldest, one of the eldest men portrayed. There was nothing documented alongside their names only. So it was one didn't know anything about the people, who they were and so on, but one would know that Renty's daughter, Delia, was also photographed bare-breasted and from all the sides. So this really somehow stopped me, and I felt really I need to do something more than just, as I said, give my name and support the project. And the idea was to really, it was then proposed to the different communes. The mountain, as you saw before on the slide, is on the border to 2 cantons and 3 communes. So all those mayors, all those communes were informed about this idea, and the press was informed, and the UNESCO World Nature Heritage Site was informed about this idea to rename the mountain in honor of Renty and all who endured similar fates, as a way of shedding light into the whole history of Agassiz, and also as a way to work on this history that Switzerland has not been very interested to open up, how Switzerland was part of the colonial project. And here I want to show you a map where it's more visible where are those different places named after Agassiz, and which places were actually renamed. Today, the Rentyhorn still is not officially renamed because all the communes decided to say no after a pretty long process. There was one roundtable discussion where we could meet the mayors to discuss about it, but because all of them would have had to say yes to make this change, and especially Gutanden is the commune which was very rough, saying we have no blacks in the mountains, they have no merits, we want to keep it as it is. Mountains in Switzerland are usually not named after people, so they didn't want to, that was another argument as well, not to rename it after another person. Then we also made other suggestions, and everything was, they always said no. We made 4 attempts altogether, and the last one was in 2020 as part of the when the Black Lives Matter movement happened. So many years later, so from 2007 to 2020, we thought, okay, maybe there was a change in thinking since then, but unfortunately still they said no. But still the idea of this renaming was a way of starting the dialogue about this history, about this rewriting of this history of this Louis Agassiz. And in that sense, that really worked. One place in Switzerland was renamed in Neuchâtel, where he was from originally. From the same city was Thilo Frey. She was a politician and one of the very first women who was in the government in 1971, when women was first time allowed to be in the government, and they were a group of 12 women, and she was in this first group. And she was a woman of color coming from Switzerland and Cameroon. Her mother was from Cameroon. So the city realized that they didn't have a place named after her yet in her hometown. And then in 2019, the L'Espace Louis Agassiz, which is directly located in front of the University of Neuchâtel, where the both Agassiz and she studied, was renamed after Thilo Frey. And then in the States, there was a school, Agassiz Elementary School, was already renamed 2002. Then recently, 2021, another elementary school, which was called Agassiz, was renamed after the abolitionist and formerly enslaved Harriet Tubman, who escaped via the Underground Railroad. Underground Railroad was a system, a network of places and people in the southern states up to the north that helped enslaved people to escape, meaning that during the night they would need a place to hide. And they were white and black people who would hide them. And then in the night, people would run towards the north, using the North Star as a guiding star to go up north. Then I must to say that also on Moon and on Mars are places named after Agassiz. And my suggestion was to rename the Agassiz Promotorium on the Moon after after Katherine Johnson. You see her on the top right. She was working for NASA, the mathematician who was calculating the trajectory on the Apollo moon landing. Historical situation. She died only 2018 with 2018 was her 100-year birthday, and she died 2 years later. And at the time, I made a work about those places on the Moon and Mars, and took then contact with the family of Katherine Johnson to see if I could meet her to talk about what she would think if a place would be named after her. But then the family said she's so frail already that it was not possible to meet her. But I'm currently portraying her as part of another project I will now not continue talking about. Yeah, so now I would like to share with you what I decided to do after the portrait of Agassiz. So it was the first time for me to step out of the studio. So I started to think I would like to go rename the mountain, but physically and without any, asking permission or anything like that. So I started to, and coming from Switzerland, I was also able to do that. When I started to work in different countries, it was very important to work with indigenous communities, to collaborate, because I cannot, do that kind of an action without involvement of the tribal leaders of the areas. But I will show you this later. So I made this sign with a short story, what this is about. The idea was to bring it to the mountain. And I did that, but I had to fly there with a helicopter because I couldn't mountain climb and I didn't want to lose time. And the original plan was to go there on foot, of course. I mean, that's the first thing I thought, but then starting to plan, I realized, okay, I cannot, I don't know yet how that works. So anyways, for me, the important part was to make this renaming through putting the sign, and it was into the mountain, and it was like a way of reclaiming and freeing that mountain of its association to Agassiz. And I used the same kind of very masculine way of, climbing the mountain. It's a very Swiss thing, and usually men have done that in the past and so on. So I kind of wanted to play also with this role. And there is this short film about this action, and it really is quite short, so it's really at the point of this renaming. A part of the project was to start this petition website, which is still online, which allowed people to give their name and also leave a comment. And when you go there, it's an interesting archive of its own, because all those comments, you can kind of feel how people feel about this, or what does it mean, such a symbolic act. Or, I mean, of course, when it would be really renamed, it would have a meaning, and they would say why they think it's important. And one person said, for instance, that one thinks that history is final, but actually history is ever renegotiable, and that's why things can change, and sometimes things need to be changed at some point. Then I made a drawing of Renty dressed in traditional African, also Congolese clothing, as a way of giving dignity back, because I found kind of, when I saw all those photographs, and I purposely didn't show the whole series because I don't want to show the naked bodies of this group of people. I kind of try to imagine how it must have felt like to be asked to go to this photo studio, to strip naked and stand in front of this camera, which at the time, it's just this box, and you have to hold still, and then and people wouldn't probably ever see the result themselves. But this humiliation, that not being able to say no, not having the agency to say no to this kind of thing, and of course people being already not abused and exploited, and then in this photographic way then as well, that was like really very difficult to look at. So I made this drawing, and this shows an installation, and the letters in the middle also, that I sent a letter of request. And then people, also these different mayors and UNESCO World Nature Heritage Site people would answer, and that was then part of the installation. And Kofi Annan was also receiving this letter because he was part of the UNESCO World Nature Heritage Site Committee, and answer letter came back from the Annan Foundation acknowledging this initiative and wishing good luck and not doing more. But anyways, it was good that they had gotten this letter. So when I started this action, I didn't know that this will continue as it did. And I went to many different other countries because somehow it started this conversation. I was always also in touch with the founder, Hans Fassler, who is like my historical advisor. And then I would hear about other historian in Sao Paulo, at the Sao Paulo University, Maria Helena Machado. Then I got to go to a residency in Rio because Agassiz led an expedition in Brazil in 1865-66 and was supposed to, on one hand, look for evidence relating to the Ice Age. One theory was that there was Ice Age on the whole planet at some point, and he wanted to look at different places where there is evidence. During that process, places were also named after him, a cave, a mountain, and other areas. A place in Rio de Janeiro was named after him. But then also he collaborated with a local photographer called Augusto Stahl in Rio de Janeiro, and he commissioned him to make photographs of an African enslaved people. And that series was supposed to be kind of an extension to the series he started 1850, but they consisted of 200 photographs, and all of those photographs are owned by the Peabody Museum in Harvard. Still, they are in their archive. Agassiz's son, Alexander Agassiz, he donated those at the time to the museum, and they were lost. Actually, I missed to say that the daguerreotypes, known as the slave daguerreotypes, they were kind of tucked in an attic and only noticed by a museum worker by chance in 1976. And she took them down, it's a woman, to the museum, and then opened it up, and then they realized, okay, this is, they haven't seen this before, and then it started to be exhibited as well. And Carrie Mae Weems, a photographer from the States, she worked with this archive as well. But at the time when I worked about this Rentyhorn initiative, I wasn't aware of her work then yet. And now I just show you a few images. I have no idea what time it is. So I'm just like, so I'm talking too long.
No.
Still okay. So here you see me as a messenger. During the research period 2009, found out people living at the Praça Agassiz has no idea who is Louis Agassiz. Who is that actually? And then I felt this is an interesting way of going to the place and telling people just who he was, what he did in Brazil. And this video that is also made of this intervention just shows me how I arrived to this particular place. And then I'm reading this text in Portuguese or Brazilian. And that's it. So it is also not about renaming this place or anyhow. But interesting was that the people living there, they were saying that they've been trying to get this crossroad more safe because there have been accidents happening a lot. There on the bottom, you see me riding towards a damaged building. There, for instance, a bus drove in there. And a year later, we went back to produce this intervention, and it was exactly the same. And then after hearing who is this Agassiz, they felt, okay, we should also change the name and so on. So that kind of was interesting to see how people living there want to change the place. This is the video. Unfortunately, no time to show you this, but yeah, I go further. I was invited then to return to realize the projects as part of Sao Paulo Biennale 29th, Sao Paulo Biennale. And then I was able to collaborate with Maria Helena Machado, mentioned before. She's worked previously with the archive, this photographic archive, and she invited me then to respond. And this is here a book we could edit together, where she invited different anthropologists from the Brazil, specialized in the history of slavery in Brazil, and this photographic archive to write texts. And so this is a softcore book, and we were able to publish 40 of those 200 photographs. And at that time, 80 were digitized, but they let us only select 40. And then I found this postcard, Fornas de Agassiz, Tijuca de Rio de Janeiro. This is a cave named after Agassiz, and it's not known as that anymore, which made it really difficult to find. But then when we found this postcard by chance on a flea market, everybody also many people recognized the place. And then I started this series, I call it self-portraiture series, where I use myself as a creolized person of mixed heritage, which is something that Agassiz also was very much against, mixing of people. So instead of, reproducing this violence that was made to those people posing naked like this, I use myself and I stand there at this place called Agassiz as a way of kind of reclaiming of the body, but also in the way of discussing the landscape. How is the landscape imposed to being named? And this is also a kind of a violence that is happening. And so I wanted to kind of bring this together. And at the time, I knew that I would like it to become a series eventually. And now I could show you there are 7 so far. A few years later, I was in a residency in Switzerland, my first one. I live since 2002. No, in 2000, I left Switzerland to go to Italy, to Fabrica, and then I came to Finland. So I live abroad a long time. In 2013, I was in a residency to extend the project. So I went to this home village of Agassiz. There's this rock called Agassiz Rock, and when you look closely behind me in the middle, it's something red there. It's engraved his name on the rock. Then this Scotland, in front of the Agassiz Rock. In Scotland, it's because there were volcanoes, and geologically, it's a place of significance. Very near Edinburgh, there were people walking their dogs just while we did this, so it was not kind of remote. It was just in the middle of a park. This was very remote. This was in Aotearoa, New Zealand, South Island, standing in front of the huge Agassiz mountain range. And there is, on the west coast of the South Island, is a glacier called Agassiz as well. So I'm standing there. And then when I did this project with the intervention on the glacier, I will show you later, I was able to collaborate with the Rentyhorn tribe from the area. And when the crown arrived to New Zealand, when I did Aotearoa nowadays, they sent Julius von Haas, he was from Preußen at the time, to venture the area, the whole country, to find natural resources. And he was guided by a Maori. And he was, this Maori guide was also from the Rentyhorn tribe. And I got to collaborate with this tribe of the people there. Here, this was in Canada. Well, the lake is frozen, but yes, I'm on that lake, Agassiz Lake. Bronx, New York. Here, this waterfall is called Agassiz, and on the left side is the Bronx Zoo. And this was made in the early morning because the Americans don't like naked people on the street. So that was that. And this was when I did here on Agassiz Island in Lake Huron, which is near Toronto, relatively near. And this was part of the power plant who invited me to make this exhibition tour, and they commissioned new work as well. So that was part of this. Now it looks like this. And now when I did, yeah. And during the Switzerland residency, I got to collaborate with an actor who looks like Agassiz, who comes from that Frauenfeld city, whom we met a few years before I was invited to go there, who is an actor. We met him at a party, and we found, when I say we, it's my partner and me, who is an artist also, and I'm collaborating with him, Petri Sargo, sometimes also. We saw this guest who was called, who looked like Agassiz, and then he happened to be an actor. And then when I was invited to his hometown, I remembered him and invited him to, or asked him if he would like to collaborate. And then he said yes. And then I invited Borut Peterlin from Slovenia to come to make wet plate collodion photographs, which was after daguerreotype photography came this on glass. And he came to make these photographs for me, and I tried to put Agassiz in front of the lens, so kind of a way to respond. And then the picture on the right is me with him on the same picture, so it's kind of a way of show how you can interfere in a history and create these impossible images. Can you just let me know when I should stop, because I'm not sure. Just cut me off when
maybe 5 more minutes or 3 more minutes.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's good. Just make it a little bit faster. This was the engagement on the glacier in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Jeff Mahowika is this person. He offered a karakia blessing on the glacier and a way to unname the glacier and free and cleanse the place of its association to Agassiz in a kind of symbolic way. But then, for instance, the Wikipedia page of Agassiz Glacier in Aotearoa, New Zealand, it was mentioned that this happened. So somehow somebody put it there because it was in the news. So it kind of, even it's not officially made, the renaming, also unnaming because the places, this and the Agassiz range didn't have Maori names before. But what I missed to say before, this Julius von Haas, when he ventured the area, he named and renamed about 100 places after Europeans, like Agassiz himself, Darwin also, their places named after him. And actually Darwin and Agassiz, they were like rivals, especially after Darwin published the Origin book, then Agassiz kind of was like disqualified because he was also religious. So he believed that the whites and blacks come from different Adams and Eves. So this is somehow the term for that is like catastrophist. It's like somebody who, in the science, it doesn't work. You know, when you religion and science together, somehow doesn't work. And I assume that this is one of the reasons why Agassiz's racial theories that he really teach to people was not so known, kind of hidden. So we have no time for the video. While in New Zealand in a 6 months residency, producing this intervention, I also made this poster on the left side, because at the time when I had the exhibition, there happened this incident in the States where white supremacists killed 9 people in Charleston in a church. And Agassiz taught in Charleston, gave a lecture there, saying something like, the intelligence of a Black person can be compared with the unborn human in a body of a white person. I mean, it's written there. And when I heard this, I mean, it's more or less that. It's so crazy. The brain of the Negro is that of the imperfect brain of a 7 months infant in the womb of a white. when I heard that, I thought like, okay, this is so bad in a way that one needs to hear this to see, okay, that's kind of things that they were teaching to people. And that is the reason why we have still this racism. I mean, in the States, it's incredibly horrible how Black people are treated, like not as if they are not human. Just a few days ago, a young man wasn't ringing the bell at the wrong house, and the guy inside, a white guy, he just shot him. Why? Instead of saying, what is it? You're in the wrong place. He was in the. You can. I mean. Okay. Yeah. So this is kind of the because it was one of the reasons why I'm interested in this project, because Agassiz is one of the persons who contributed to what is the damage done today, this mismeasure of men that happened then. So yeah, this is the poster for the Brazil. Okay, I'm almost done. This was an engagement in Canada at the lake where I made other photographs, and there I got to work with two throat singers from Nunavut who were living in Quebec where this lake is, and they you can see the landscape and you hear them singing, this throat singing, and this is also a way of kind of symbolically unnamed the place. This one last minute that I have, I hope, is an important part because of this petition website. I was contacted by a woman who's the descendant of Renty, the great-great-great-granddaughter of Renty. And she came to Switzerland with her daughters. She could speak about Renty, who he was, that he was able to read, something that slaves were not allowed to learn, because reading is knowledge, is power, and so on. So that was incredibly powerful that she came there and could speak about Renty. And in 2019, she filed a lawsuit against Harvard because they own the photographs of her ancestors, and she wants those photographs out of the ownership of the institution. That Harvard is very powerful. They made lots of money also because of slavery. And then what happened is that the family and descendants of Agassiz heard about the story from New York Times and then wrote a letter in her support to present to the director of the Harvard. And now Harvard has a new president, it's a Black woman, Haitian descent. Very interesting. I would like to know what she says about this story. Anyway, so they wrote this letter in her support, and we filmed this press conference, which was held outside the university. And it's never happened before that you have these two families, these two generations coming together. It was very powerful. And this is, I'm sorry, I take too much time now, but this is what I did now new. This is Renty and his daughter. And I used there the stapling as a way of addressing the freedom that they didn't have. So this series is called Tailoring Freedom. And they are wearing clothes that were worn by Frederick Douglass, abolitionist and former enslaved man, and Harriet Tubman, as a way to kind of creating this armor. This metal creates this armor. And this is a gift to Tamara, because this is a work you cannot sell. I couldn't sell ever. But then I also decided to portray in the same way the other people that were photographed with them. So they all knew each other, and I felt they shouldn't be kind of left on the side because they don't have the luck to have descendants now in their lifetimes to fight for their freedom. And this is how it was exhibited now in Autograph in London. And here in Consins to Medley in Rotterdam was the first place, and then Power Plant in Toronto. And here, this is the whole map. And currently I'm extending the Tailoring Freedom series because the whole series consists of 15 images. So, and next year it comes to Switzerland, the exhibition to Pharmacie in April. And there it will be shown also. As it opens now in June in Turku, Finland. Map, it's touring map. Now we have no time for that, but critical fabulation is something that my work is informed about, coined by Saidia Hartmann, and wake work that Christina Sharpe speaks about. And I have this information, which will be then which I sent to Maria and Anna already for your archives. These are the books.